Hey guys, welcome to my channel. I hope you're all doing very well, and welcome to another installment of Late Night Reviews with Jean, where I find myself reviewing yet another film in the dead of night and trying not to make noise as other people in the house are actually sleeping. So if I sound a little bit quieter than usual, that is why. But yes, I just saw Godzilla vs. Kong. Let's talk about it. So Godzilla vs. Kong is directed by Adam Wingard, and this is one of the most highly anticipated films of the year, especially after the 2020 that we had, where all of these hugely anticipated films were pushed forward to this year and indeed to next year. You know, we've been starved of blockbuster material, especially outside of the superhero franchises. So Godzilla vs. Kong came at the perfect time in order to provide us with that blockbuster popcorn movie making that we've been looking for. And of course, because of the whole pandemic situation, this film was directly made available on home release, and if you were in the US, and luckily for you, this was included as part of your HBO Max subscription. But for those of us elsewhere, we had to pay an additional fee to essentially just rent the film as we usually would do in PVOD. So that's the kind of circumstances surrounding the film overall. But what really got people excited was the opportunity to see these huge, gargantuan, both in terms of legacy and pulp culture, as well as their literal size, kaijus come battling it out in this film, finally facing each other after years and years of anticipation being built up by the previous films, introducing the individual characters in this massive showdown. So do I think that this film lived up to the expectations that I had, and indeed millions of other people had, for this showdown? Well, we're about to find out. But before we do go into my thoughts on this one, as per usual, if you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to my channel and make sure you turn on your notifications so that you can be told when I upload next. Without further ado, let's dive right into it. So like I said, when it comes to this film, the main attraction, the reason why we're so invested in the first place, is of course the showdown, the battle between these major kaiju monsters, that of course being Godzilla and King Kong himself. Now, when it comes to my history with the kaiju franchises, I'm personally not the biggest fan of this kind of blockbuster, okay, but I will say that I did very much enjoy, surprisingly so, I very much enjoyed Kong Skull Island. I think that film is excellent. I truly, like, of all of the kind of Godzilla Kong films that we've gotten recently that was supposed to be a part of this like kaiju cinematic universe, I enjoyed Kong Skull Island immensely, like immensely. So I was actually looking forward to seeing Kong return into this franchise because of my enjoyment of Kong Skull Island previously. And so during this film, that's the kind of character that I had an emotional attachment to. I did not care about Godzilla, I can tell you that for free. I did not care about Godzilla. I don't care about Godzilla. We'll talk about, you know, the animations of these characters in a second, but I do think that a large part of why King Kong feels like a character that you can really relate to and you can really sympathize with is because of the way that he's animated to be essentially just a very large gorilla who has these kind of human-like personality traits and characteristics, like the bond that he has with the little girl, who, by the way, should have been nowhere near the scenes of violence and terror that she was subjected to throughout this film. She should have been nowhere near. Where are the little girl's parents? And where is a responsible adult? Because there isn't one to be seen in this film. Not a single responsible adult, because if there was, she wouldn't be there. Why is a little girl at the site of literal carnage? Whatever. Anyways, I got so frustrated seeing her be so close to, like, I don't care if she has an emotional connection with the kaiju. Please move her out of the way of danger. But yes, I do feel like the addition of these personality traits and these human-like characteristics that Kong has been given does make for a more empathetic and likable character. Whereas in the case of Godzilla, there's less of that, especially in this entry. So it's difficult for me personally to kind of connect to Godzilla beyond him just being this raging monster that poses a threat to King Kong. But either way, I would very much say that this film delivered on the areas that it very much needed to, and that was the spectacle, that was the sense of scale, the grandiose feel of these action sequences against these huge titans. It was phenomenal. well. It was a sight to behold. Oh, this is exactly what we needed. And I watched this on my TV and I fully appreciated that epic scale that we got of these massive monsters battling it out. Now, I will say if there was one disadvantage to these action sequences, it would be that, well, first of all, the whole structure of the film was pretty predictable, at least to me. Having seen the trailers, I could already guess that, spoilers for the film, by the way, in this review, I could already guess that there would be like two fights with King Kong and Godzilla, but then in the end, they would kind of make up because there would be a mecha Godzilla that they'd need to fight against together. Like, I could already see the wheels turning when it came to the plot of this story. So that was a little bit disappointing because it meant that there was less, anticipation, there was less excitement to see what was going to go down in the last act. But when it comes to the action sequences specifically, I would say what let it down somewhat for me was just how much of them was prevalent in the trailers for this film. And I didn't even watch that many trailers. Like, I was trying to go into this film, as blind as possible just to enjoy the spectacle of it all. But I will say that even in the few trailers that I did see, there was a lot of footage, especially from the first encounter between Godzilla and King Kong, and that was used in the trailers, which meant that whilst I was enjoying seeing the spectacle unravel, the violence, the terror, okay, the grand scale of things, at the same time, I was a little bit disappointed that so many of those action beats were already revealed in the trailer and it left very little to be surprised by. However, if there was an element of the action sequences that I did happen to be surprised by, it would be the kind of creativity that's introduced when it comes to the, action beats that take place between King Kong and Godzilla. The idea that King Kong would find all of these creative ways to take down Godzilla using the environment around him, whether it be, at the docks or even with the buildings, just kind of shoving him against the buildings. I don't even want to think about the property damage and the money that it would take to rebuild Hong Kong. Anyway, but I did enjoy seeing King Kong using a little bit of ingenuity and cleverness in order to use his environment and indeed a weapon which he managed to get a hold of when he was in like some place, like I can't remember what that place was called, but it was supposed to be like the core of the earth, even though there was sun there and some sort of ancient civilization used to exist there of like King Kong's ancestors. I don't know what was going on there. We'll talk about the plot later on, but I did enjoy seeing him use that weapon and actually think about the strategy that he was going to take in order to take down Godzilla, even though I didn't love the way that weapon was procured. And another thing that I was quite impressed by for the most part in this film was the CG. The way that they rendered the characters of King Kong and Godzilla, especially King Kong though, I found to be quite impressive, especially when you take into account the details of his fur and his facial features. Like, it was very impressive. And there were also scenes with the city, as I mentioned, that are of course CG, but they look photorealistic. I was very much impressed with the CG that's used in this film for the most part. There are elements of it that look a little bit wonky, especially of course when King Kong is in the water and you can see his fur is completely soaked in water. Water is infamously difficult to animate and it's difficult to kind of mimic the movement of water and the way that it naturally moves in real life. So I understand why it would look a little bit shaky, especially on black fur where it would reflect light on a certain way, and basically all of the things that we're used to seeing in real life and we take for granted, animators have to kind of recreate that, and when they don't get it pitch perfect, there's this kind of uncanny valley effect that takes place where it looks off, like something is wrong. But like I said, when it comes to this film, what I really wanted to see was a battle royale between kaiju monsters, and that's exactly what I got. It was incredible. It was a sight to behold. And I also love the fact that they gave, like I said, King Kong those kind of human characteristics that made him more of a sympathetic character. But one thing that I didn't love about this film were the humans themselves. Oh my goodness. I already talked about my disdain over the fact that these humans, these adult humans, allowed this child to be in such close proximity to not only a kaiju, but also to the danger that was caused by these kaijus meeting up for the first time. How could you let the child be so close? And then you claim to care about the kid. You don't care. You literally do not care. You are using the emotional connection that that child has with King Kong in order to get what you want from him, but you do not care care about that kid, because why is she in the middle of such terror, of such literal violence? And in terms of the other human characters and their plot lines, I also wasn't impressed. I mean, you had the scientist with Alexander Skarsgård and Rebecca Hall looking mildly concerned at everything that happened around them, even in cases where they should have looked panicked. They should have been panicking out of their minds and some of the things that happen in this film, and instead they just look like, oh no, this is unexpected. Like, what is happening? What is going on? Like, I know there's such thing as overacting, but how can you overact in a situation like this? That makes no sense. And secondly, you also have the Millie Bobby Brown crew, where she's on her own separate mission that follows on after the events of Godzilla King of the Monsters, which I barely remember. But I wasn't invested in her character. I'm so sorry. She's a likable actress, like, nothing against her. I just wasn't invested in her character and what was going on there. We also had a Judas moment with Isa Gonzalez turning out to be the daughter of that bad guy who developed the Mechagodzilla to begin with, in order to be the kind of alpha monster, the alpha kaiju that would take them all down. And he used the remains of the, you know, the prime Godzilla that we saw in Godzilla King of Monsters. Like, all of that is like, okay, you know, like, okay, the bad guy is bad because he's bad. His daughter is bad because she's the daughter of the bad guy. The main issue here is that none of the characters have any real depth. They're not three-dimensional characters in the slightest. The scientists are scientists because science. The bad guys are bad guys because bad. You know, it's like, that's it. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. At least it shouldn't matter, because the film is about the kaijus, okay? That's the center of the focus. And so imagine again my disdain and my annoyance when we shift focus onto these guys. And I get it, because you need them there in order to give context for, I guess, what's going on. I guess, you know, the circumstances by which Godzilla and Kong meet. As far as context goes, this was weak, okay? The connective tissue in the story was weak, and I didn't care at all. And finally, if there was one thing that I particularly hated about this film, it was its ending. Because in the end, essentially what happens is that Brian Tyree Henry's character, who, by the way, didn't really fit with the rest of the tone of the film at all to me. Like, he really stuck out like a sore thumb in this film, which is unfortunate, because usually he's great. But yeah, his character ends up spilling some like vodka in the Mechagodzilla, and that's what makes it malfunction. It makes it easier for King Kong and Godzilla to take it down. I was like, what? I was like, you're kidding me. Not only did this film try to distract us with these two-dimensional human characters and their boring storylines that no one cares about, but then they actually made one of the humans an integral part to taking down the Mechagodzilla in the most stupid way imaginable. It's literally just the kaiju equivalent of spilling coffee on your laptop. Like, that's what takes down the Mechagodzilla. I was so angry. Like, can we at least have King Kong and Godzilla take the Mechagodzilla down on their own? Like, can we at least have that? But no, the problem is that there's that conflict between the kaijus and the humans, where the humans need to feel valuable and needed to the plot when they're really not. And so you end up with convoluted solutions like this one that are just so dumb. Whatever. So with all of that being said, I'm going to be giving Godzilla vs. Kong a 6 out of 10. So that's it from me. Now that I told you guys my thoughts on Godzilla vs. Kong, it's time for you guys to let me know what you thought of the film down in the comments below. Please be sure to subscribe to catch new videos coming up. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!